Hey now, what's up everybody? We're gonna do some Code Katas today. Let's go ahead and jump into it. We are on, and if you don't know, a Code Kata is a little mini coding challenge. And they rank from 8Q at easiest to 1Q at hardest. So right now we're about to do an 8Q, counting sheep. Let's jump into it. So it wants us to consider an array list of sheep where some sheep may be missing from their place. We need a function that counts the number of sheep present in the array. True means present. So we're given this big array, true, true, true. So if they're true, the sheep is present. If it's false, it's not present. So we need to go through our array and keep track of the ones that are present. So the correct answer to this one would be 17. If we took out all the false values, we would have 17 trues. It says, hint, don't forget to check for bad values like null or undefined. Cool. So we can do that. Okay, let's open it up in VS Code. Bring our title in, and then we will bring in our function. So there's going to be a few different ways that we can go about doing this one. Okay, let's grab our test. All right. This needs to be a .log, and we need to get rid of this, and we'll save that. Okay, and let's go ahead and run Quokka. Quokka is an extension that runs our code in our code editor. So right now we have this array of Boolean values, true or false. And we're calling our function here, and we're passing in that array, and we're returning, well, we want to return how many are true. So right now we're getting undefined return, but at the end we want to have 17. So what we're going to do is we're going to need to loop through that array and see if it's a true or false value. So if it is true, we're going to need a place to store it. So we'll call that present sheep. And that will be, we'll start out 0. And as we find a true, we'll start to increment the number. So let's go ahead and loop through our array. Let I equal 0. While I is less than array of sheep. Then we want to dot length. Then we want to increment I. So we'll say I++. Right? We're starting to lag, so we'll let it sit for a second. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and we're going to let sheep equal array of sheep at index. Right? And that'll give us each individual sheep, which will be a true or false value. So we'll say if is not what we want. We'll say if our sheep is equal to true, then we will say present sheep. We'll increment our present sheep. We'll say plus equals 1. And if what are we missing? Is our for loop good? We're missing our last curly right here. So if our sheep is not true, we'll just ignore it. So right now, after our for loop, we can just return our present sheep. And we should get 17. So we're getting 17 returned, and that's our expected output. So that works. So let's go ahead and save it so it formats it correctly. Oh, and also we could do it with a filter. Let's go ahead and start Quokka back up. So we could say, let's grab this function here. We don't need this. What is this? Okay. What is going on? Let's grab our function. Command C. Let's bring it in. We can get rid of all of this. And what we're going to do is we're going to return our array of sheep. And we're going to say dot filter, and our filter will take in our sheep, and then we'll have our arrow function, and we'll say we want to return sheep that are equal to true. And so what that does is that will filter out all false, null, and undefined values. So we have an array with all those values removed, but we want the length of it. So we'll at the end we'll say dot length, and you can see here we're getting 17 returned, and that's our expected output. So we'll go ahead and use that one for Code Wars. Let's test it. Very cool. We're getting our one test passed. Let's attempt. And it passed all 3 tests that it gave us. So let's go ahead and submit, and we can look at other users' answers that they've given. Okay. So you can see they used a filter. They just threw in the Boolean. So if it's true, it passes automatically. No need to compare it. They used a for loop. That's what we did. Filter. Filter. They used a for each. Same thing as for loop. Cool. All right, let's do our next one. Simple Pig Latin. I'm drinking some coffee. We have our Xerox copy machine coffee cup. Broken handle. I don't own one coffee cup that doesn't have a broken handle. Okay, so what it wants us to do is move the first letter of each word to the end of it, then add AY to the end of the word. Leave punctuation marks untouched. Cool. So it passes, so we get a string passed in. Pig Latin is cool. And we want to return igpay. We want it to return in Pig Latin. And if it has punctuation, as you can see here, we do not want to alter it. It needs to stay in the same place. Cool. So let's do it. Okay. Pass our title in. Don't want any of this. Grab our function. And let's grab our test. right? Change these to console logs, and we'll go ahead and bring these both down. We'll start Quokka up. We can go ahead and end Quokka on this file. On this file. Cool. So we're getting undefined return. This is what we want returned in the end. Our string that's passed in changed into Pig Latin. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to check our string and see if it has punctuation in it, because the way we're going to handle it with punctuation is different than how we will handle it without. So what we're going to want to do is check for that right from the get-go. So we'll say if we're going to use some regex. We're going to say if let's see, we need to put in our punctuation. So our question mark, a period, or exclamation point. If our string contains any of those, or we don't need to check for global, then we'll test it against our string. Okay. So if it contains one of these, then we want to we're gonna need to account for it. So what we're gonna want to say is we need our string with no punctuation. So we'll go ahead and say let no no punctuation, and that'll equal our string dot slice, and we'll slice it from 0 to -2. And if we go ahead and check that out, we log it out. No punc. Why is it not logging? We're getting an error. Oh, because we're not, I know exactly, we're not testing, we don't have a test that has punctuation. So let's go ahead and let's bring in a test that has punctuation, just so we can play around with it and make sure it's working correctly. So this one right here that has punctuation, we'll bring it in. Like that, and the output should be this right here. Put that in here. Cool. So now it's logging out, and then you can see that it is our string that's passed in right here, except our exclamation point is gone. So that's our string with no punctuation. Then what we need to do is we need to grab our punctuation, because we're going to want to add our punctuation back to our string at the end. So we'll let punctuation equal our string.slice, but we want to slice off the last two, which will be the punctuation mark and the space before it. Okay. So if we log our punctuation now, You can see we get our exclamation point. Cool. So now we need to build up our string. So what we'll say is we'll say let pig Latin equal we want to take our no punctuation, our no punc, and we want to split it. We want to get each individual word. So we'll split it on a space. And then what we want to do is we want to map over it. We'll say dot map. And we'll take in our word. And we'll say, we'll do backticks. And we'll put in our variable. And we'll say word dot substring. So we want to take our first letter, and we'll do that at 1. Then we want to have another variable where we'll add the first letter to the end of the string. So we'll say word dot substring, and we want our first letter, so that'll be 0 to 1, and then at the end we want to add a. Oh, not inside our variable though, right here, like that. Cool. So that'll build up our word. And then what we need to do is add our punctuation to the end. So what we'll say is we'll return our pig Latin, and we will add on our punctuation as so. So you can see for the one that has punctuation, it's coming out, but what we need to do is add a oh, we need to join it, I believe. Let's see. Because we split it, we mapped over it, so now let's join it. And we'll join it on a space. So that should do it. See? Perfecto. Okay, now we need to worry about the other ones. The other ones will be the same thing. Except we'll just return, because it doesn't have punctuation, so we just need to do the same calculation, except we can just do it on the string. So we can do string, and then we can actually copy this whole thing right here. We'll do the same thing. We just don't have to worry about our punctuation. So that should work. Let's check it out. Igpe, Antenle, CA, Ulke. So cool, so it works. So let's throw this into Code Wars, see what happens. Hope for the best. Tests. Cool, 2 tests passed that we were given. Let's attempt it against some random test. And we get 21 pass tests, so perfect. Okay. So let's go ahead and submit it and see what everybody else's answers were. Alright, so if you look here, they did a replace. I have no idea what's going on here. This is all regex. They did a replace as well. Everybody did a replace. Whoa. It's a lot of code. String.split, they map over the string. They store the first letter. Word.slice first letter plus A, and then they join it. Cool. All right, cool. Let's do another one. Decode the Morse code. We're going to skip this one. It's crazy. We're going to skip it for now. We'll come back to it at some point, but it wants us to take in Morse code and return what the Morse code is saying. But it's pretty in depth, so we're gonna skip it for now. But we're gonna go ahead and do this one, Grasshopper. And what it wants us to do is write a program that finds the summation of every number from 1 up until a number. The number that they give us will always be positive integer greater than 0. So if they give us 2, we need to add 1 and 2. If they give us 8, we need to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we sum all the numbers up until the number that they give us. Cool. Let's do it. Bring our title in. Grab our function. And we'll grab our test. Start up Quokka. Okay, getting undefined return, that's good. Let's go ahead and save this one and get rid of it. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to create an array from 1 up until our number that they give us. So in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and return. This is going to be a one-liner. We're going to return an array, and we want our array to be length of num, what they give us, and we want to say dot keys, like that. So that's giving, so array start at 0. So when we add our array, we're gonna have to add 1 to every single number. We want this to be 1, we want this to be 2, we want this to be 3, and then eventually 7 will be 8, which is what we want our array to end at. So right now we have our array with these numbers in it. So what we want to do is we want to reduce it and sum the whole thing. So we'll reduce, and a reduce takes in an accumulator, and it takes in our num. And what we'll say is we'll say our accumulator plus equals our num plus 1. And we want that to go down to, we want to reduce that down to a number. So you can see We're getting 1 returned. We're getting 36 returned correctly. So we created an array up to the num length, and we reduced it down. We summed all the numbers that were in the array. So cool. Let's put it into Code Wars, see what happens. Let's test it. Nice. 2 passing test. 105 pass test. Perfect. So that's working great.